man, if you can find your purpose, something that you're gonna jump out of bed and you're gonna say to yourself, I gotta go and do this. This is what God put me on this earth for. I gotta go and do this. I have to have the impact that my life and my experience have shaped me to go and have on the people that I know or the people that I don't even know. You know, if I can go out there and show them, hey, there's a better way. Yes, you made mistakes. We've all made mistakes, but we get grace. And when Tracy and I talk about this a lot, right, is the grace that we get to go back and do it again and do it better. Yeah. So, but we have to learn, right? And that goes back to the mindset. If you don't have a hunger for more knowledge and start to figure out, well, one, what are my weaknesses and what are my flaws? And then two, how do I start working out on them one at a time that's going to help me change, right, and transform into somebody else, somebody better? Because who we were yesterday isn't who we are today, and it's not who we're becoming tomorrow.
Because society has got us thinking that we got to be these big macho men. Mm-hmm. And so what I've recognized is that we could still be providers. We could still be supporters. We can still be protectors without having, this form of toxicity or this type of macho-ness, this bravado that we're sticking out our chest and be the head dog on the block. Right. Society's taught us some bad messages. We talked about some of the bad messages of hip hop in certain cultures and communities, and that is true, but we've got to do our best to do right by other people. And whether it's our significant others, whether it's our children, whether it's our family members, and we really got to do our best to help people because everybody, like I mentioned, is going through something.
All right, guys, welcome back to Always Level Up the podcast. I'm your host, Carlos Garcia.
And I'm Tracy Ross Garcia, and we have a special guest in the building with us today, Maximo. If you want to, welcome to the show.
Wow.
I'll give you some time to share a little bit about yourself with our guest.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. Carlos and Tracy, y'all have been phenomenal. Thank you very much for having me in this wonderful, beautiful studio. Shout out to everybody, that's watching, all the supporters of the podcast here. Anybody that's contributing and sending good energy. It's interesting. When I was on my way in here, I was thinking about, our journeys and what's gotten us to where we're at right now. And a lot of it has to do with a lot of people that are close to us, and they don't always get their due. So I want to take a moment to say hi to all my people up in the Midwest.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of brothers and sisters, a lot of families that I have up there that they're part of the reason that I continue to do the work that I do. Right. One of them is a good friend of mine, Abel Muhammad, who is a member of the Nation of Islam out in Chicago. I got to give him a what's up. He's always sending us good, positive energy, and his spirit is just unmatched. Really? Another guy up in Indiana, Dave Hairston, his son is one of the best young athletes. And we talked a little bit about sports and athletics. We'll get into that. Him and his son, I can tell you, they just got that it factor. And so many other people, man. My family up in Michigan, my partner, Destiny, who is watching right now. She'll be watching us and supporting and sending just good energy. And, being around your people, having your people with you, supporting you is key to all the things that you do in life.
Absolutely. So let's tell everybody who is Maximo. Let's start there.
That's a good question. So, I'm a guy like many people who wears many different hats. I'm a guy who was born with certain gifts, and I feel like it's my responsibility to share those things. Divinely inspired, spiritually blessed, and just here to share what I have with the world, and it's interesting. One of the gifts I have that I tell the students I work with every day, young people, whoever will listen to me, is that one of my gifts naturally is communication. Right. And so since I was born with that gift, I feel like it's my responsibility to share that. And I've done my work in sharpening those skills as well. But podcasting, being on stage, having a mic in front of me has always just been where I wanted to be. In fact, one of the single biggest inspirations that inspired me to do any form of speaking was a video that I watched at a very young age of Malcolm X.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he was at a debate. It was like a debate that he was on. It was on during, one of the longest running TV shows that I think is still running, Meet the Press.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And he was debating about his personal ideology and spirituality and religion. And I just thought he was so eloquent with how he was defending his argument, so to speak. Back in the 60s when he was there speaking, I mean, just having your own form of religion was a radical thing.
Right.
And, when I did more, learning about him, I actually found out he was from Michigan as well.
Oh, wow.
And, that was part of his journey and his sojourn toward, his life's goals. And I think no matter how long we're on this earth, we can touch and inspire people,
Right.
With just a few moments. We see a lot of things on the internet space, social media, podcasting, where people are sharing important and inspiring parts of their messages, and those are touching people to help people. I think we're all in the business of helping people in some form or reality of what we're doing. So, that's part of what I am, part of what I do, man. I'm just working with people, working with everyday people everywhere we go.
That's awesome. So let's take it back. You mentioned you're born and raised in Michigan, right?
Yep.
The Midwest.
That's right.
So how has that shaped you to who you are today?
Yeah. So we had for all the viewers, we've been here for a few minutes as we're getting to know each other, but we were talking before the cameras came on about our journeys, our paths. And where we're from, and I was born in Lansing, Michigan. My dad, his family was, they originated here in the Southwest, northeastern parts of Mexico, Southwest Texas, many moons ago. And then they traveled up to Michigan to work in the fields. Mm-hmm. So I think part of what my dad's family gave me was the, hard work,
right?
Yeah.
Giving us that value of hard work. And I still share those messages today with the students I work with. So I work with young people every day. I coach. Mm-hmm. And I value hard work. I told students yesterday that, hard work is the surest and easiest way, not the only way, but one way to garner respect and get what you want in life.
Right.
Hard work.
Absolutely.
My mom's family came from the Valley of Texas up to Michigan in the 1960s to work in the car factories. And then many of those individuals went on to sell cars. And so I like to think they gave me the gift of gab and the gift of hustle. Because, as leveling up,
yes, sir,
you have to have a mindset of getting the things you want. Obviously, we're going to do those things legally with integrity and with means, but hustling is a mindset and getting up and getting to work and doing those things. And we have to be nimble on our feet. We have to be able to pivot, maneuver, and outsmart competition. Competition, I think, is another thing. I grew up playing sports. We talked about our journeys as you just mentioned. And, I grew up playing sports, much like you. I grew up in a diverse community growing up, as a child. I grew up playing soccer, and soccer is an international sport.
Yes, sir.
When I was a young man, I was playing with Latinos, I was playing with Haitians, I was playing with little white kids, all these kids, we were all playing sports together. And that's another way that you learn hustle, you learn hard work, you learn about camaraderie, leadership, teamwork, you learn about how to communicate. It's funny, this isn't necessarily a good thing, but when I was playing sports, I was the young kid out there talking mess.
Right.
I was talking smack because those were the guys I looked up to in the NBA, guys that I were looking up to.
That's what you do, right?
You just kind of talk. You out there on the playground, you talk, you think you're going to get one up on these guys, your competition. In the little Strength Finder book, we talked about some books. One of my biggest skills is competition. Is competition, So I've had to recognize where my strengths lie and how I can use those to my advantage. So communication, competition, leadership, those are some of my skills. So I'm still with where I'm at in life, trying to figure out how I can utilize those skills to the best of my abilities so I can do the most good for my family and others.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that.
Well, you clearly have the gift of communication. I've been very entertained so far. Storytelling is something that you also do, and that's really one of the reasons why we started this podcast is because we're all about telling the stories. We want to know the good, the bad, the hard. But how did you discover that you did have this gift? How did you discover you were a good communicator? What was your experience like maybe being on stage for the first time or something?
That's a very good question, Tracy. And y'all are wonderful hosts, by the way. How many podcast episodes have y'all shot?
Oh, man, I don't know.
Over 100?
Yeah, not 100
No.
yet. We're on our way.
If you get over 100, I'm going to come back and bring y'all another gift.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
But, that's another great question. One of the things that I always tell people that I work with and part of why I am continue to do these things, whether our podcasts get 1 view or 1,000 views, is, you've got to do the things that you can't stop thinking about. You got to do the things that are always calling you. And in the back of our minds, we all have a calling. We talk about sports, and I'm a big sports guy because, sports are a great way to illustrate some of the struggles that we have in life in carrying out certain messages. One of the biggest boxing events in our communities is coming up, and that's Saul Canelo Alvarez is fighting on the weekend of the Mexican Independence Day. And I always wonder, like, particularly for combat sports, you know, how did you get involved in fighting people?
Yeah.
Right? And it strikes me that, you know, maybe somehow, some way, when you were a kid, maybe you were getting into fights. You know, and I'm not here to promote fighting and beating people up and punching people in the face, you know, but, you know, if we take the sport of boxing or combat sports, mixed martial arts, I mean, this is a great way to learn discipline. You know, it's a great way to learn hard work personified. And these people who are actually doing physical violence could either be in a prison cell or they could be prize fighters.
Right.
And earning millions of dollars, representing for your country, sharing your wealth, and have a great story. So I wonder sometimes how we play the game of life. I mean, we talked a little bit about business, your all's business, and how you're savvy enough to play your cards right in this complex world. And we live in an incredibly diverse world where there is a market for all of our skills.
Everything.
Everything. Yeah. There's a market for all of the things. I mean, I'm looking at this beautiful podcast studio, and I'm looking at the lights, I'm looking at the plants, I'm looking at the desks. And I mean, there is a business for all of these things, you know? So when I recognize certain people have certain skills, whether it be artistic skills, storytelling skills, I'm wondering, hey, how can we connect the dots here?
Yeah, how do we channel that energy?
How do we channel you? How do we point you in the right direction so you can do some amazing things with your life? Right. And, you know, and we all have these things. You know, my daughter, who's 6 years old, I'm finding out she's a talented singer, a vocalist.
Nice.
And I'm thinking, okay, we got something.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you know, as adults, as people that kind of recognize what's possible in this world, you know, you've got to recognize, hey, we got to get people connected. We got to get people plugged in. And how do we try to take this thing so we can utilize our gifts?
Right on. I love that. I love that.
So as far as, you know, life's journey, where would you say you've hit your first wall, your first point of struggle, and what'd you do? What was it and what'd you do to overcome it?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, I don't think any of our stories and any of our tales are done, you know, just yet. We're constantly, you know, learning. We're constantly pouring into each other's cups. You know, we're constantly having new battles. You know, it was interesting. I was listening to a song on the radio on the way here, and it was like this Neo and Pitbull song, and he was saying, everybody's going through something. Everybody's going through something. And it just reminded me, like, you know, everybody's got their struggles.
Absolutely.
You know, I was looking at, again, I do a lot of listening to music, probably like you all, and I'm listening to, you know, Michael Jackson, one of the greatest entertainers of all time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, this person legitimately had some problems, whether there was problems being on the road and entertaining, but problems that led to maybe some sort of substance abuse of taking pills, of taking sleeping pills and then pills to wake up and things of that nature. I look at another performer of that era that's greatly inspired me from the Midwest, Prince. You know, Prince and how he, you know, passed away. You know, those are sad stories. I look at people that I think had it all, and I recognize those gentlemen. Another one was Robin Williams. Yeah. Robin Williams was legitimately one of the funniest, most entertaining people ever as well.
Right.
Unfortunately, you know, he lost his life to mental health issues, depression, sadness. A lot of our people are dealing with struggles that are unbearable and things that we can't even imagine. You know, and I talked about a little bit about this before we put on the cameras and saying that, hey, we might be okay at the end of the day. We're probably going to go home to a decent home.
Right.
You know, there's going to be some safety there. We'll probably have a good meal tonight. You know, and we're going to get up tomorrow. There's a lot of people that don't have that.
Yeah.
Right.
Realistically speaking, I mean, and that's not to put a damper or a black cloud over our nice podcast episode right now.
But it's a real thing, and you know, it's if we dismiss the idea that struggle is not real and people don't go through it and don't have to overcome something, then you miss a part of the journey that's probably the most crucial part. Is because it's in those challenges, it's in those moments where you hit the wall, you hit rock bottom or whatever it is, like, and you need some kind of help, right? And then you start to look around like, well, where am I and what do I have to do to get out of this, right? And we've talked about this before, where you have to have this level of faith, right? But also, okay, there's a way to get better. There's a way to overcome this, you know. For me, when I think back in the beginning, when I faced the biggest wall, the biggest hurdle was one, having some young boys, a couple of young boys before I was, 23, And I'm like, man, how am I going to take care of these kids? Like, I need to, like, the path that I'm on, the things that I'm doing is not going to get me to where I want to be, or even going to work a regular job is not going to be enough for me to provide for them and provide a lifestyle for them that's going to be healthy, And I'm like, I need to change. I need to do something different. And that led me to the classroom, right? The classroom became a place for me to start to develop myself. And like your shirt, right? It says mindset. Right? I need to change my mindset. Well, how am I going to change my mindset? You don't just say, well, my mindset's changed. You need exercise. You need mental exercise. Sure. So where can I go and get that mental exercise? And it started in the classroom. But it also began with this faith that, you know what, I'm going to do this and something good's going to come out of it. I don't know what. I might have some student loan debt at the end, but I'll be better than I was when I stepped into this space. Yeah. And I came out on the other end way more enhanced and equipped with knowledge and how to become more resourceful and how to do things that were going to, allow me to grow and have more value as a professional. It's like now that I have these skills and now that I know how to do this research or find answers, then now I can go and apply it, right? And then the work has to come in. So there's a bunch of, milestones that you have to hit, right? And it doesn't turn into financial success immediately. It takes time, and a lot of times we equate success with it being monetary, right? Look, possessions, right? Look at my car, look at my house, look at how I dress, all these things. But that's not it. Success is like, how is your mind, and do you know how to use it? And has that allowed you to grow and become somebody that's going to show somebody the way, right? A better way. And in the environment that, I know I've grown up in, I was always looking for that person that can show me.
Somebody save me.
Somebody show me a better way, And now it's an opportunity to be that person for somebody that's looking for it. And you mentioned that you work with youth and with your students. So it's an opportunity for you to pour into them as well.
Yeah.
And I want to just rewind a little bit. How did you talked about you being a student athlete, you grew up playing sports. Maybe it was sports, maybe it was school, maybe it was your career. What was it that kind of shaped your reality and your mindset for you to be able to kind of carry yourself the way you do today?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so I grew up playing sports on the south side of Lansing, Michigan, and I know during this time of year everybody's getting ready for football. And so I grew up playing American football, on the south side of Lansing, Michigan.
Nice.
And
what position did you play?
I played it all.
Oh, yeah.
I played it all, but particularly a defender, but it's funny because some of the best games I ever played were like at recess or like when the cameras weren't on. Yeah, see, some of the best plays I
was a great practice player.
Exactly,
I'll tell you that
All American at practice and stuff. But yeah, and one of the things that really cemented my mentality and mindset through sports was the idea of action as you communicated. Because like I talked about, I like to talk. I was always talking, good, bad, indifferent, saying all the things on the court, on the field, but at a certain point I realized, okay, I just got to show people.
Yeah.
A lot of people would look at me and be like, oh man, look at this guy, man. He's not very good. For better or worse, people judge people. People judge things by their looks.
Everybody has some, even if you're a professional.
Yeah. You judge a book. A lot of people like to judge books by their covers, and they don't really know what's inside the book till you take the time to read it, So when I was younger, my mindset was just like, okay, I just got to show people. At a certain point, I just got to show people and keep proving myself. And then I had to believe in myself, right? Because then I was going to be challenged. And then I had to realize, okay, now it's time for me to go out. And if I'm actually going to talk this talk, I got to walk the walk as well. And perhaps when I was younger as well, as a young man, I might have been a bit cocky. Not like most men, right? We were never cocky when we were young, right?
I think everybody has that.
Yeah, and those are things that a lot of young men kind of have to grapple with and realize and learn with, And so, again, having a connection with people, I think, is important. You find connection through people in sports, team sports.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of grown men, young men, that they're crying after games because they lost a game or they dropped a pass or they missed a winning shot, and that's a very sentimental and emotional thing, and so sports has been always a way for me to connect. And I mean, I think a lot of times people underestimate the power of sports.
Yeah.
You know, when you can pack, stadiums with hundreds and thousands of people and millions of people are buying pay-per-views to watch events. I mean, there's something there.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, something inspires people about sports.
And of all walks of life.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. You know, tonight in the UFC, you got a guy from South Africa who's fighting another guy from like Dagestan or something, and they're fighting in Chicago. You know, so it's like this is international sports, international, events and emotions that touch all of humanity, no matter where you're from and no matter how much money you have in your bank account. The other thing, part of the reason I'm talking about combat sports and fighting sports is because typically, not always, but typically you find these young kids that grew up in impoverished circumstances, poverty, looking to fight their way out of it.
Yeah.
In boxing
Literally.
gyms. And they just grew up tough. One of the other biggest inspirations that I have, in the fight game throughout United States history and American history is Roberto Duran. He came from Panama fighting his way out. He grew up just fighting. And he gave us some of the greatest fights of boxing and pugilism that we've ever seen, And so, again, not to focus too much on combat sports, but, those sports and those athletic events tell a tale that sometimes we can't say in words.
Yeah.
Storytelling. You watch a game, you watch a fight, and you just watch it. You don't got to listen, and you can kind of see the story come together of how people are triumphant or how people face tragedy and how they overcome circumstances and odds and things of that nature.
No, I love that. And, I'm a huge proponent of being a student athlete. My children play sports. And it's not because of course, if they made it to play professionally and they got paid to do what they love, that's all great and fine. But that's not the reason why I'm, driving them across town for practices and trainings a couple times a week. For me, it's about the environment that they grow up in. Again, the mindset that sports teaches you, the teamwork, the resilience. And then it also just gives you access to being around other people who are going through that same thing as you. I remember growing up in high school where some of the football players, they were a little bit rough around the edges, and that was a way that the coaches, because I love teachers, I love coaches. I think they at that level is because they have the best interests of that student in mind, and they know that it's going to keep them off the streets. They know that it's going to keep them healthy and getting to the finish line, which is graduation. And so I'm always like a huge cheerleader of being a student athlete for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. It just teaches you a different way of growing up, a different way of handling things, and a different way to overcome the adversity. So I love that.
Right on.
Yeah.
The other part of playing sports, and for me, was it allows you to create a network and expand beyond your current environment. So I mentioned to you earlier, I grew up on the west side of town. I played sports. I played football since I was 10, and so when we moved to this new city in Euless, Texas, I played football. So I felt confident, like I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna play football. I was excited because I know I'm gonna meet new people, and then I was also gonna be able to have my opportunity to perform out there with these different athletes. But when I got there, man, these athletes were huge. They were massive. Yeah, sure. I was like, man, these are great. They were superstars. But that right there just allowed me to have the connection, make some new friends almost instantly. You start training, you start sweating, you go through the grind. Yeah. You beat each other up out there on the field, you lift each other back up. It's like, and that right there just creates this type of camaraderie. But it also creates this type of resilience. Like you're not afraid to do anything that's hard or suffer a little bit. Because, going out there in the Texas heat and practicing made things challenging. But also, it allowed me to have connections with other people and expand my network beyond, not just San Antonio, but into this other city and beyond. Some of the guys that I played football with went on to be professional athletes. Sure. But the main thing about that is sports will expose your weaknesses.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You start to see, am I coachable? Right? Are you one of those players that has a bad attitude and won't listen? Right? Like it's exposing. That's a weakness, man. Like you have to work on that and get in front of it because bad attitudes kill more dreams than anything.
Sure.
People have to be able to adapt to it, and then shifting to the combat side. I trained MMA,
Sure.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai,
and so you probably learned humility. on that
yes,
as well.
yes, man. You start grappling with the black belt, man. They'll tap you out real quick.
Yeah.
Or you start sparring with a professional fighter, and it's like, man, you can get hurt real quick.
Absolutely.
So you just can't come out there like you're just the toughest man on the block, because you will get humbled fast. But that does teach that level of humility, but also. When you have these powers to potentially hurt somebody, you have to be responsible with it. You can't just be out there beating people up.
Yeah.
You have to be humble. You have to be able to not fight. So beyond the ring and doing it for a competition, knowing it just to be able to be a protector is good. But on the other side of it, it's you have to know, it's okay, why do I do this? What am I learning out of it? And the discipline aspect, is a key for people to succeed, because when you have discipline, it's going to allow you to do the hard things or endure things that are going to be challenging.
Yeah,
and that's life.
Yeah, and so one of the things I'm hearing too with when we're talking about this is you're talking about accepting the lessons that life gives you. Mm-hmm. When you're grappling on the mats with a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you've got to listen to your body.
Yeah.
Right. Because you'll be humbled in a quickness, just like you talked about.
Yeah.
And so, we talked a little bit about communication. I like to think about communication is just as much as we're very good at speaking and being on the mics, we also got to be good listeners.
Yeah.
And I think of communication as a dance, and you got to have a good dance partner. As we're communicating right now, I'm thinking, wow, y'all are really good dance partners, because we're there's a good pace, there's a good rhythm. We're not talking over each other. I'm trying to listen to what you're telling me, you're listening to what I'm telling you all, and we're exchanging messages. I think part of the reason that society is in the place it's in, because let's be honest, a lot of our people, a lot of men, young men, are struggling out in society right now, is because we're relatively unhealthy. Mm-hmm. We're relatively unhealthy. So wellness means a lot of different things. Social relationships. Part of leveling up, I think, is having a good social network, of having the right people around you. Now, having the wrong people around you, I don't care who you are, they will pull you down. They will drag you down. For a lack of better words or terms,
Well, it's true. It's true, because, and that goes back to environment, right? Where are you, and who are you around, and who you spend your time with, right? If you're spending time with people that don't have goals, that are not driven, that are not working on improvement, then guess what's going to happen? They're going to want you to be more like them. Because if you are driven and you want to accomplish certain things and you have these goals, you're going to make them feel uncomfortable.
Oh my gosh!
And if you make them feel uncomfortable, guess what they're going to want? They're going to want to do. They're going to beat you down, verbally. and can you take that verbal abuse?
Yeah.
For the most part, growing up in an environment where that was the norm. People joke around. They joke around. Cussing each other out, insulting each other, and oh, I'm just kidding. But it's like, man, you're not really lifting anybody up. You're just beating them up verbally.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps people in poverty. Now, if you want to change, you have to be the person willing to do some things that might be corny, right? That may not be popular to the people that you're around at that time. It's like, let me get out of this environment. Where do I go? Yeah. And that's the next thing. It's like, where have you put yourself in an environment that's caused you to change and grow and level up?
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about business as well. And I think you find out too, once you get to, leveled all the way up, you find that people at the top are collaborating, not competing. Mm-hmm. And so collaboration is key. What can we create together? What can we create that's bigger than ourselves? Mm-hmm. What can we create that's bigger than a moment that'll last longer than an hour or today? And I think that's part of building a legacy. Mm-hmm. People will often forget what you tell them, but they're not going to forget how you made them feel.
Exactly.
And so we talked about storytelling as well. I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of different people, and I've been fortunate enough that for somehow, some way, I've been able to put the pieces of that puzzle together so I can communicate their stories to other people. Mm-hmm. That's how a positive transmission of messaging happens, is if I can communicate something that I've seen over here and plug it in to help this person over here, then I've done a good deed. Mm-hmm. And it ain't going to cost me anything but a few moments, and oftentimes one of the best gifts we can give people is a few moments of our time. Mm-hmm. And time is a premium. Yeah. We know that, right? Getting around in traffic around here. Mm-hmm. I was up 35 earlier today. I thought, okay, I got to take a detour, right? To get where I need to go.
That's right. Yeah.
What are some lessons that, I've heard a couple of different walks of life or paths for you. You've talked about your youth involvement, your entertainment, health and wellness, business. What are some lessons that, translate across all of those different industries that you're able to kind of like be almost like in all these spaces and have relative success in these spaces? What is that core for you?
Yeah, good question. Another good question. So one of the things for me is that, I grew up, in the 90s, looking at hip hop. Hip hop was, let's be honest, if you grew up in the 90s, I mean, hip hop had a major influence to a lot of us who grew up in the inner city.
Good and bad.
Good and bad, absolutely. And hopefully we take the good messages, know. And I was thinking about one of the single biggest influences in my life, entertainment-wise, earlier today, preparing for this, and that was Will Smith. Mm-hmm. Now, Will Smith has some recent bumps and ups and downs, but in the 90s, Will Smith came up hustling from Philadelphia as a young man who just had charisma. He had it. He had the it factor.
Yeah.
I mean, you could look at him at a young age. I mean, he could communicate. He could rap. He could act. He could dance. He could shoot a basketball. I mean, these were things that he had. He had that it factor. Mm-hmm. And then I look at these people like him that could do multiple things. Another single biggest influence amongst all of the influence that I had of someone who could do all of the things during that era, maybe a little bit later, was Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx, another hilarious comedian with his impressions, with his singing, with his rapping, with his dancing, with his acting. And I'm thinking like, man, I can do that. Mm-hmm. I can do that. And next thing you know, I'm in the mirror and it's me and myself locked in a room and I'm doing the dances, I'm doing the rapping, I'm doing the singing. And I'm thinking, okay, if they can do it, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then just like we're talking about, I've got to continue to prove myself. Look, if I really want to do this, if I really think I'm this good, I've got to have the gall. I've got to have the audacity. I've got to have the courage, the bravery to show up and do these things. And so the fearlessness that if I go and show up and I fall flat, okay, then maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Right.
But for somehow, some way, one of the biggest words that I always come back to when it comes to this, because whenever you put yourself out there, you're going to have some people who disagree. We talked about that. You're going to have some people that you might rub the wrong way. Right. You might intimidate them. You might have a few haters. One of the words I always come back to is being undeniable. It's being undeniable.
Love
and the
that.
reason I like that word so much is because there's a lot of naysayers out there in all walks of life, no matter who you are, no matter, if you're elected official, whether you're making millions of dollars in whatever industry, in Hollywood, in entertainment, of, education, of business, whatever your pursuits, you're going to have people that are naysaying and try to pull you down. But if you can be undeniable, if you can walk into the room and people are like, look, I don't know what it is about that person, but they got it. Mm-hmm. They got it. They have the it factor, or that person has something. I don't know what it is, but I feel better after being around that person. Mm-hmm. And that's what people kept telling me. I met a lady yesterday, and we're talking after a few minutes, and she goes, you just got the best voice. Have you ever thought about doing like a podcast, or have you ever thought about doing radio? I just feel like you should do like something with your voice. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard that a few times. And so that's the thing, right? If listening to the messages that people bring to you, if you go places and all the time people are saying, hey, look, you've got this. Have you ever thought about this? You could do this. You've got to listen to those things. And you got to say, hey, maybe they're right. Mm-hmm. Because everyone's going to doubt themselves from time to time. Everyone's going to say, I can't do this, or things get hard. Yeah, things will get hard. Yeah. And that's when the challenges come, and that's when you got to recognize, do I really want to do this? I got a funny story, and I'm trying not to be too long-winded.
No,
you're
go
good.
for it.
You're good.
These scenarios and
it's
stories.
your show right now, brother.
Okay, so I was emceeing an art show maybe 5 or 6 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was, and one of the artists that was having models featured was a fashion designer. And she got like 15 models, and the models were a little bit novice or inexperienced, and others were more professional. And the art show starts like at 9 p.m. And the girls showed up at 1 o'clock so they could get their makeup done, they could get their hair slayed and their eyebrows all done, and get all tricked out with the nicest outfits. And they've been there since like 1 o'clock. Now, it's a long time to wait in one space. The girls are asking me, hey, is there any food around here? I'm like, y'all better call Uber Eats or something, because I don't know. And so eventually it comes time for them to do their catwalk and walk on the runway at this fashion show. And they've been there for 8 hours all day. I know they're hungry. They probably just want to go home. And right before I'm getting ready to get on the mic and introduce them, one of the young ladies says, man, there's a lot of people here. I don't know if I can do this. And I look at her and I say, look, you want to do this or not? Like, you've been here since 1 o'clock. Like, do you want to waste all this time?
Too late.
So, exactly. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we have to ask ourselves eventually, do you really want to do this or not?
Yeah.
With whatever it is we want to do. With all of these dreams and aspirations and goals that we have, and no matter who we are, we all got dreams. You know, I was thinking about it while on the way over here too. I saw this big RV, dealership, and I think that'd be really nice to buy my family an RV and just travel, go camping, and do all of these things. And that's a dream that I have. So how can I get there?
Yeah.
You know, so at the end of the day, do I really want something or not? If you're watching this right now, do you really want to do these things? If you do, you need to go prove it to yourself. Prove it to everybody. Prove everybody wrong. Do it for whatever reason that you need to make it happen.
Yeah, no, I love that. You know, and I'm sure you get this a lot too, where, you know, your friends or colleagues are like, well, how do you do it all? How do you do it? Right. And I get that question a lot. I think a lot of it has to do with because I have such a big family. I have so many kids.
They're watching.
Yeah. And they're like, you know, how do you do it? And you just do. Yeah. You just do it, and then you figure it out along the way. Like you can't course correct if you're still docked, right? Like you got to just step out and you got to take action. You got to figure out if is this something that I like to do? Maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's not. But how do you know if you don't try it? And so I've gotten to a habit too of like just, you know, you step out of your comfort zone and you try something new. And I've always said like I'm a PR background, so I'm like, I'm behind the camera. I'm fine with being behind the camera. And it's like, yeah. And so he's like, do you want to be my host on the podcast? And I'm like on the podcast. And a lot of other things, right? And you talked about how there's little messages that get dropped with you along the way that I think that remind you that you are on the right path, right? That like where somebody's like, you know, have you ever thought about doing this? I would get stopped like, oh wow, you know, I like your hair, or like something about like my looks, and it would always just trigger me, like, you know, I have to do something, right? And so I did start with doing some local acting and things like that, and it was to build my confidence up, to do things that I thought that I couldn't do or I wouldn't do, and just to try and do them, and it's fun, right? And you get exposed to new things, and then you build these parts of your character. And though I never, I don't aspire to be like an actor or anything, but those are things that are going to allow me to be, to carry on into other parts of things that I do want to do and things that I do love to do. So, for the people that are listening, if there are like these little naggings that you have, if there are these things that are like on your heart and that you can't stop thinking about, like try it.
You got to go for it. You got to try it, at least so you'll know. It's important to be in the room and be in the space anyway, right? We deserve that. We don't get too many opportunities to be in certain places and have certain experiences, and you got to try it when you can. I got another moment that goes back to your first question that came to me as you were speaking, and it was that, I had a moment. I was actually volunteering at a prison when I used to live in Michigan, and it was a low-level security prison. Many of these men were on their way home, and they had maybe a year or two left to do in their sentences. And it was one of the most transformational, life-changing experiences that I've ever had in my life. And I used to question and doubt myself a lot with certain things that we're talking about, some of these business ventures. I'm putting myself out there, and I don't know if people really like my flavor of what I'm bringing and that sort of stuff. Second guessing myself. And I had a moment on the inside of these prison walls that changed my life forever. And I said, you know what? Like, I'm about to do this. I'm about to take it on. And I was volunteering with these guys for weeks. I'd come in there once every 2 weeks or once a week on a Wednesday night, and we'd have meetings, and we'd just sit around and talk, and we'd have heart-to-heart meetings. And many of these guys were, again, guys that were struggling, guys that come from our backgrounds, that have admittedly committed some mistakes. They've done some wrongdoings, and they saw me as an opportunity of someone who could pour into their cups. And, we would talk about all sorts of things, on the inside. We talk about our culture. We talk about our backgrounds. We talk about our families. And ultimately, I ended up moving to Texas. And so I had to stop going into these prisons. And so I had to say goodbye to a lot of these guys. And it was a kind of a tough thing to do because we develop a connection with people. And I will never forget, there was a time that I said goodbye to a guy and I went to go shake his hand and I told him goodbye. And there's a moment when you shake hands with people and you kind of let go of the hand and you kind of go about your business. So I went to shake his hand and then I went to let go. And then he grabbed my hand and pulled me back. And he pulled me in close. And he says, hey, man, I want to thank you for everything that you've done for us and everything that you've done for me. And I'm like, yeah, man, great, cool. And as I'm trying to pull away, he pulls me back. He says, no, man, I'm serious. And when he says this man who society would deem a hardened criminal, who doesn't have much, has nothing probably, he looks into my soul with everything that he has. And this was a moment that I don't know if he knew what he was doing to me, but in this moment, our souls connected based on the eye contact and just based on how we were interacting. He says, no, listen, man, I really want to thank you. He says, don't you realize, like, you're everything that we thought we could have been. He says, look at us, man. Look at all these guys in this room right now. He says, our lives are over. He says, we're never going to be anything in lives. He says, our families won't even talk to us. You came in here every week because you wanted to. And he said, I need you to keep on doing what you're doing for all of us, for all of us that are locked up, for all of us that have been forgotten. And I remember in this moment when he's telling me this, I'm having an out-of-body experience because I'm thinking like, wow, did I really make an impact on this guy and all these other guys just for coming in here and talking to them for a few hours once a week? And this man just poured into me and I just thought, you know what? All right, I'm about to take this whole world by storm. I'm about to just storm on everybody. I ain't going to rain on everybody. I'm about to storm on everybody to do it for these people, for these communities, for all of our people. Because let's be honest, a lot of people have sacrificed for us to get where we are in life.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we didn't just get here. I mean, we have to be honest and look about some societal wrongs that have happened in society, in the United States, in, this country, for us to be okay, for us to flourish, for us to get somewhere and not held back. And there's still a lot of things that got to be corrected, but that was one moment that people ask me, like, how did you get started? That's the moment right there. That's why I said, okay, I'm about to just do this.
And that's awesome because what I'm hearing here is you found a purpose.
Yeah.
Right? You found a purpose and how to use your talents and your gifts and in a way that was through service.
Yeah.
Because these people, they feel like their lives are over, but they're really not.
Yeah, and see, that was the interesting thing as well. That's exactly right, what you just said right there. But that's where his mind was at, right? Because we talk about mindset and we talk about, mentally being incarcerated and what that can do to someone, right? Of us feeling stuck with no matter what it is. And it could be having a bad day. Right. And you just feel like, man, I can't get out of bed.
Right. Yep. Well, and what we give them and what you've given them was hope. Yeah. Right. So now they have some hope, but part of that is say, man, if you can find your purpose, something that you're gonna jump out of bed, and you're gonna say to yourself, I gotta go and do this. This is what God put me on this earth for. I gotta go and do this. I have to have the impact that my life and my experience have shaped me to go and have on the people that I know or the people that I don't even know. If I can go out there and show them, hey, there's a better way. Yes, you made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. But we get grace. And when Tracy and I talk about this a lot, right, is the grace that we get to go back and do it again and do it better. Yeah. So, but we have to learn, right? Now, and that goes back to the mindset. If you don't have a hunger for more knowledge and start to figure out, well, one, what are my weaknesses and what are my flaws? And then two, how do I start working on them one at a time that's going to help me change, right, and transform into somebody else, somebody better, because who we were yesterday isn't who we are today, and it's not who we're becoming tomorrow. All those things are going to be determined based off our mindset and the actions that we take daily. And I have a soft spot for inmates and people that come from that because been there and
well, we're human. Yeah. We're human, and listen, where would any of us be if we didn't get a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, 100th chance at life? We're human. That's what human beings do. And you live and hopefully you learn and you apply a little bit of a different magic to whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yep, absolutely. So Speaking of the purpose, what drives you every day to get up out of bed and to do what you do?
Oh my gosh! So we're getting even more personal now, which I'm kind of joking, but man, last year. So I have 2 children. Their ages 10 and 6, and their mother and I separated, a few years back, mutually, and last summer in May, unfortunately, my kid's mother just didn't wake up one morning.
Oh no!
And so she uneventfully, tragically passed away overnight in her sleep, completely unexpectedly.
Wow.
And that was the biggest wake up call that I think anyone can have.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden you got 2 little kids looking up at you and you got to explain to them something, probably the worst news of their life.
Yeah.
And that's something that I grapple with every day, that reality with these kids. My son, I've done a lot of work with him one-on-one. I think he's going to be okay. My biggest fear is that somehow my daughter, falls off the rails somehow and loses track of her purpose, loses track of her what she's given, her gifts, and how she could apply them to this world. Because when you lose someone that close to you at a young age, it does something to you. It changes you, and especially when it just happens overnight. And so right now, my biggest purpose is my 2 children, because they don't have anybody else left for them to take care of them, to mold them and lift them up and to teach them certain things about this world. So that is something, me as a man, and I've really had to grapple with manhood and the idea of manhood and what it is to be a man. We've talked about some of these things, and I think a lot of our guys, get lost somewhere, some way. And, I've had to think about how to be the best dad, what it means to be a man in today's society. And part of that is responsibility of taking care of your own.
Right.
And providing the right resources for them and loving them. And, parenting is hard.
It is.
Right? Y'all are telling me y'all are parents. I mean, if you have more than one, I tell everybody that has a second child, that's the game changer.
I was just telling.
If you can have one and you can do good at that, great for you. But if you have a second one, that's the game changer. That's where things get real.
Yep.
What happens when you have 7?
I can imagine that too.
Well, we know.
Yeah. So, and listen, kids are a blessing. Kids are a beautiful thing. I wish everyone the best in their journey with parenthood and finding their way there, but I know it is not easy to raise kids in today's day and age, and so I am constantly in the back of my head. I don't think I'm worried, but I think that I have that parent alarm that's almost always going off in the back of my head if I recognize they're not okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And y'all know what that's like,
Man,
right?
absolutely.
There's an alarm back there. It's like a red button and it goes off and it's like that little red emoji of the siren that'll go off. And you've got to recognize, hey, look, I've got to make sure these kids are okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I wake up every day. And then it's also for, the future kids I may have one day. Again, since then I have moved on. I am in a committed relationship. My partner now, we are engaged to be married in March. And she's also one of the single biggest contributors and motivators in my life, because what I found is that she is my duality. She's my match. And so I recognize she's on the ball. I mean, you know how it is being married. The women are on point. The women are on point.
Help us stay on point.
And that's the thing. I've got to think in my head, if I'm going to be married to this person, if this person is going to be my life partner, I've got to match her every day as well. So I got to bring it.
Standards go up.
Exactly. I got to bring it. I can't let her down, right? If I'm going to commit to this and be in this deal, I've got to be on my game as well. And that takes a lot of patience.
Yes.
It takes grace. It takes the ability to be part of a unit and move differently than how you move by yourself.
Right.
So there's a lot there.
Oh yeah.
That's
a
a
whole
big
show.
one.
That's a whole show right there. That's leveling up for real.
And that really resonates with me because just the power of doing it for your children, man. Just you can move mountains. Like and like I mentioned earlier, when I was 22, I already had 3 boys. I'm like, man, how am I gonna do this? Like, I need to figure it out, because what are the options? 1, they have a dad that doesn't do anything and that's not present, or 2, they have a dad that does everything for them, right? And because you can't let them down, right? Who else is going to do it better than you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And, for me, Carlos and I were talking about this on the way in here, is about us being on the same team, right? If we continue to look at it as us being on the same team, then we're going to do everything in our power to find victory, right? We want to win together. We want to back each other up. We want to support each other. It might not be, it's not 50-50. If there's a space where he's lacking or there's a space where I'm lacking, then it's up to us as partners, as teammates in this to fill that void, and to carry them through to the finish line, regardless of who has the upper hand or who has the strength or who has, who's the leader at that time. But we are on the same team and we have that philosophy, and I think that really allows us to find success in marriage and in business. We work together, we raise our family together, and
so that's inspiring. And that's inspiring because, what I'm hearing is that y'all really care about each other. Because if you're talking about we live together, we do business together, we do the podcast together, that's a lot of work together.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to my thing, like, do you really want this or not? There's a lot of people, let's be honest, that don't find success in relationships. I mean, relationships are hard. It's hard enough. Right. It's hard enough for us to find our own way.
Yep.
Right. So if you can find that with somebody else, I mean, that really is powerful. Right. And so you talk about you can do more things together than you can separate.
Right.
And so what we try to do is, me and my partner now, and we're not perfect like by any means, but we try to find other ways to inspire other couples as well. I mean, I really find it very hard when I find out people are breaking up or getting divorces or there's all sorts of problems going on in relationships. And again, we're human, but when you start hurting other people in those relationships, then we got to recognize, hey, we got to take a step back, And so there's a lot of men that I've met that have succumb to mental health issues, depression, things of that nature, because of things that they're going through, things that they've brought into their homes. Right. And, so one of the things I do when I work with men is tell these guys, look, it's okay. Like, we can fix this. Like, let's try to come up with a plan, A lot of the men that I work with in men's circles is supporting each other. Right. I don't know how many men that I've seen who are 6'7", 300 pounds, look like bikers. Right. But when you start talking to them, you peel a few layers of the onion peel back, they're big teddy bears, right? Because society has got us thinking that we got to be these big macho men. And so what I've recognized is that we could still be providers. We could still be supporters. We can still be protectors without having, this form of toxicity or this type of macho-ness, this bravado that we're sticking out our chest and be the head dog on the block. Right. Society's taught us some bad messages. We talked about some of the bad messages of hip hop in certain cultures and communities, and that is true, but we've got to do our best to do right by other people. And whether it's our significant others, whether it's our children, whether it's our family members, and we really got to do our best to help people because everybody, like I mentioned, is going through something.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, it's a lesson that I learned is if you don't take care of the home first, nothing else will be in order.
Absolutely.
You have to take care of the home first, which means your wife, your children. I mean, from organization to communication to support to being on the same page. And to do that, it takes a level of accountability and awareness, right? Because as a man, some of the things that we'll struggle with is our pride and our ego, right? So we have to learn how to throw that out the window because that right there is the barrier that prevents us from making a true connection with our spouse, with our wife, with our girlfriend, whatever it may be. And once you can get rid of that and you can start to figure out, okay, well, how can I be better for us? What does that look like? What does my role look like? And how can I support you in this role? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And understanding, like, let's bring that together and get into an alignment to where we're moving in the same direction. Yeah. Right. And this is why, for us, it's been important, to work together because when we're working together, we can grow together. Now we can accomplish more together because this is my right hand, right? This is the person that's going to help me see my blind spots, that cares. Like, I don't want to see you fall because if I do, one, I'm going to help you get back up. Two, I'm going to show you where you missed something or where you made a mistake or whatever. And that is powerful, right? Because If you don't have that, you don't have that person, watching your back, supporting you, helping you along the way, encouraging you on the way, lifting you up when you're feeling down and out. Like, it's going to be hard to be successful, outside, because the world will beat you up out there.
Yeah.
Right. But when you're home, like, this is safe space. Like, I don't need to come home and we're fighting. I need to come home and feel the love and feel, the support, but also to be like, hey, are we moving in the right direction? Do we need to have crucial conversations? Yes. Cool. Well, let's do it. And, let's figure out what we have to do to make the right adjustments, right?
Yeah, and then also, Carlos, I mean, one of the things about that is you also have to be in a place to receive those messages.
Absolutely.
How many guys do we know where we're like, nah, I got this.
Yeah.
I know it all.
That's
like,
big.
I got this, right? We've got to be in a position to actually listen and take some feedback, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like I talked about, the communication that we share is like a careful dance to a careful song. And every now and then we might step on each other's toes. We might be a little bit out of rhythm, but how do we get back on track with this dance?
The more you dance, baby.
There you go. Get some practice. Get some practice.
Because what is the opposite of that? Of retreating and shutting down and not communicating, and then that wedge just gets wider and wider, and then it becomes a lot more difficult to reconnect.
Yeah, very, very nice.
Yeah. Absolutely. So in this current space that you're in right now, you have a show that you do, right? It's a comedy show?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit more about that and what does that look like for your next level?
Yeah, so I want to give a shout out to Laura T. Garza, who is the executive artistic director of Teatro Audaz San Antonio, which is a local theater company that thrives on telling the stories of underrepresented communities and populations. I approached her probably about 8 months ago now, and said, I got this idea. This is another idea that just keeps coming to me. I just can't stop thinking about this. Right. And again, I grew up in the 90s and I was watching In Living Color. And so In Living Color, again, was a show where I just found it just had this magnetism. It just kept drawing me back to it. And I just found it hilarious. I mean, I saw people on TV, people that looked like the communities that I came from, and they were having fun. And they were making people laugh. And they were having a raucous good time. And I just thought, I think we can do that here in San Antonio. And I think we need to tell our stories. And San Antonio has a really unique vibe. It's got a Tex-Mex sort of blend. You've got a very humble, gentle, kind spirit of people. And it's very diverse with Military City, USA. And so I said, we need to do this. And she goes, well, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And I've got the script written already. Here's 8 or 9 sketches that I wrote. And, I've been watching, comedy and film and TV for a long time. And, I've been on stage. You've seen me being on stage before. I think we could do this. And so we said, okay, let's do this. And it's kind of like we talked about, once you take a bite, then you gotta go all the way. Now it's time to chew the food.
You're committed.
Right? Exactly. You committed. So we started in May with sketchy nights, Audaz to the Max sketchy nights in San Antonio. And so I wrote the first 8 of the 9 sketches that we did, and they were funny, comedic ways to get some important messages across. Some of the same messages that we're talking about here, but do it in a comedic way. Why? Because people learn and intake messages differently. People like comedy. Guess what? Laughing is good. And I found that society was much in a place where we kind of needed to let our hair down and relax a little bit. Life can be very difficult for a lot of us if, we're empaths and we internalize a lot of problems, that are out there in the world, problems that we have within ourselves and our families, and we need to have a night off. So we started doing this thing over at the Rah Rah Room on North San Pedro, just south of the North Star Mall. And I said, I think we can really do this. We did 3 episodes, May, June, and July. We took August off. We're back on track for September. And we're just looking to, making people laugh, bringing people together. We usually do 8 sketches, all original sketches that a crew of us have created. We have a musical guest, and it's very much in the realm of Saturday Night Live. Nice. It is adult, raunchy. It is San Antonio. It is fun. It is in your face.
So they're all live performances that are happening that night. Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
It's very funny. And so again, what I've been able to do is through understanding people, I can kind of figure out what's going to make people laugh, what makes them tick. And if I can touch those right buttons, during the show, we get a great reaction. In fact, there was one sketch that I made, and I was an Uber driver, and I was like this annoying Uber driver, and I was talking the heads off of everybody that got in my car. And then I found out that I had a guy who was in the back seat, and I was driving him, and he had some mental health issues. And so somehow, some way, me as the Uber driver, I won him over, and I was able to help him just with the moment of talking him up. And after the show, the sketch was kind of funny, kind of comedic. After the show, someone pulled me aside and said, hey, you know, I really want to take a moment to tell you thank you for that last sketch. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah. She goes, no, you know, I'm a therapist. And, you know, that really, spoke to me about how that sketch was written. And in that moment, I'm recognizing, like, this is why I did this.
Yeah.
This is why we do this. This is why we have live comedy. This is why we do live interaction. If I've got this charisma and this spirit and this aura, I can share that outwardly so this person can see me, hear my messages. They confirm that and give it back to me, and thinking like, wow, that's the power of what we're doing, the power of live theater, the power of communication, the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
And so the show has been a blast. The show has been a blast.
Well, I definitely want to check it out.
I know. You gotta.
Come ready
So
to
when's the
laugh.
next
I
one?
love-
September.
I love-
Do we have
September,
it?
I don't want to say the date right now because
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me, but it's
But
gonna be
we'll,
it's gonna be funny.
Okay. Love it.
I got a sketch that I'm writing right now, and you'll laugh at this because I'll tell you what it's like. It's a couple that's having some problems, and so the wife finds out about a karaoke party that they go over to at someone's house. So they go over, they do start singing karaoke, and then the husband says, hey, thanks for inviting, me to this. It's really great, And then they're like, yeah, we needed this for our relationship. And then the host of the dinner party says, okay, everyone, it's time for us all to have sex. And then the guy's like, what? And the host tells him, what? She didn't tell you that this was a swingers party? And then hilarity ensues from there. And so this is the type of stuff, this type of scenarios that are just like outrageous and hilarious. And how did this even occur?
How did we get here?
Exactly. For some reason, I don't know how I thought of that. But yeah.
Karaoke is
Curveball.
actually popular.
Karaoke's very popular.
So is the other stuff, I'm sure.
But and that's the thing, I mean, somehow I think I found out that this guy told me he was a swinger. I think I met him at the gym, and he went out of his way to tell me he was a swinger. And I'm thinking like, okay, and I thought like maybe, okay, that's got to be a part of the culture there where they like remind everyone 2 or 3 times that they're swingers. So in case you're interested, they can kind of slide
You
the
call
number.
me, yeah. Oh my gosh, so funny. What are some? I know we're getting closer to the end, but I wanted to see what are some of your like non-negotiables, things that you kind of come back to that help you realign with your purpose.
Oh my gosh, that's another good question. I never really thought about that. I mean, I think that one of the non-negotiables I have that's always been in my life is working out and training and mental health and wellness. Wellness means a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But I've always, worked out and trained as an athlete. So, I've never considered not working out, not having movement as medicine,
Right.
of not stimulating myself. A lot of times I'll get up and work out, and you think on a good day, if you can be pain-free, injury-free, and you've got the right music playing in your earbuds, and you're moving and you're feeling good, and you're just in this zone, right? You're finding that that flow state of you're moving weights, you're running around, you're jumping, everything feels good. And next thing you know, hey, it's an hour later, or that hour just flew by really quickly, And so working out and having that movement as a form of medicine, I think has been my non-negotiable. And I also think about, when we talk about some of these men's issues, and I think, that form of movement and training, I mean, that speaks to our spirit and our soul back from our ancestors back in their warrior days, and how we were providers and how we got up and went hunting and how we builded, safety and shelter for our communities. I mean, we were providers. We were used to moving and working and utilizing our muscles and coming up with strategies to kind of how we're going to eat and how we're going to survive. I think honestly that a lot of people like working out for those reasons. Part of it, at least, so I could never not work out in some form. I mean, that always makes me feel better. If I could go for a run, or I could get around and, get on the mats with some jujitsu, or go play basketball, or teach kids, how to play football, things of that nature. And so that's got to be the biggest one. And that helps me keep me on track. You know, during my workouts, I'll take a little note here on my phone. Okay, reminder to myself, do this around 9 a.m., you know, or do this, you know, starting off your day with a workout, I think is a great thing to do if you can fit that in somehow. I also recognize working out like that is a luxury and privilege. Not everyone can do that.
Right.
Not everyone can do that for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I love that.
I know. That's right up our alley.
Right in line. Well, you know, I think it combats laziness.
Yeah.
Because you're action oriented, you're doing things, you're getting it done. One, you're taking care of yourself, your health. Two, it helps you process, you know, certain things, you know, whatever you're feeling, certain emotions, you know, and then through that process and going through whatever it is, you know, lifting heavy weight, running long miles, running distance, like you're able to clear your mind, you know, and then, hey, you're renewed and you're ready to get back to work.
Yeah, and like you said, what a privilege to be able to have a healthy body, strong legs, lungs that can breathe clean air, to just get out there and move your body.
Yeah.
You know, I tell a lot of women that I was in the coaching space a lot too, where, you know, it's these health issues or their body image and these things that they struggle with, and they think it's, oh, I need to be at this gym. It's a certain gym or it's a certain trainer or it's a certain, no, go walk.
Take some action.
Take action. Be consistent. Find what it is for you. It doesn't have to look like what you see on Instagram. It doesn't have to look like, you know, shout out Soul Fitness. I invite people to the gym with us all the time, but it's like, that's not what you need. You need to consistently do something that it's going to allow you to move your body. Mm-hmm. Like you said, movement is medicine, and I am a firm believer in that. And whenever I'm feeling in a slump or out of it, and, you know, you go and you pick some heavy weights up, or I like yoga. I like to do kettlebells and those types of things that just renew your strength, that renews your energy. And it's such a missing and overlooked, it can be so simple, you know, and yeah, you're right. Not everyone has access to it, but we all have we have a front door. We can go out and hopefully if it's a safe space where you can take some laps.
Everywhere.
And, yeah, you know, and
all over the
just
city,
being able to clear your mind, you know, will help with a lot of those mental health issues that are, kind of taking over the society. But I think movement is such a great non-negotiable.
Yeah,
I have that as one of mine too.
So last question. What advice would you give to the younger you, right? What would be your best advice that you would give to the younger version of yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've thought about that too, because I recognize that if I would have found this purpose and passion and this voice and this power long ago, then I would be much further along on my journey. I would have been, I probably could have been to Hollywood by now. I probably could have been on Broadway. I probably could have been I could have had my own talk show, right? But, I would tell myself, trust your instincts. Very basic, some very basic advice. I mean, I think that we alluded to some things earlier about how to help people out of wherever they're at. How do we help people get a little bit better? And oftentimes it's just the little nuggets. It's just the nuggets. It's the tiny degree of moving a little bit to the left, right? I like to tell people that everybody that I know, everybody your children, your family, you're all a masterpiece. And you are working to perfect that masterpiece with a stroke here, a brush there, a little bit of a different color here, and take that color and smooth it out just a little bit that way. And you're going to find that masterpiece, and some people, hopefully don't get frustrated. That doesn't happen overnight. And so trust the process. It's not about the destination, but it's about the journey.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Trust the journey. Trust what you're learning along the way. Those little nuggets that you're taking in and putting in your backpack, in your toolbox, so you can pull them out and need them when you absolutely do need them. Yeah. So trust the process, trust your instincts, and try to find your purpose. I try to keep it as real and as honest as possible. And a lot of times when I do the podcast, I don't try to evoke the most wisdom, but I try to be as real as I can, right? Because again, messaging could be misconstrued, things of that nature. And people could say, well, I don't really like this guy, but ultimately, I just want to help people. Right. And I'm going to be okay. I've already done a lot of things that I recognize I didn't even think I was going to be able to do. At this point in my life, right? I didn't think I was going to be able to, do certain things, do certain shows, do certain events, but somehow I did. Now, is there more out there? Perhaps there is. Perhaps somehow, some way, I'll get there. but I'm pretty content with where I'm at in life. I've got two kids. I've got a significant other. We've got a pretty good life, and so who knows where the journey will take us, who knows?
Absolutely. Keep moving forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Love it.
So I know as we wrap it up, we talked a little bit about what's next to you. I know we'll plug you on social media and wherever people can find you so that we can see when that next comedy show is. You want to let our listeners know?
Yeah. So again, thank you all so much for having me here at the Always Level Up podcast. Tracy, Carlos, y'all have been phenomenal. I wish you all the best of luck with your venture here and wherever else, you may be going in business and life. The fall is always a notoriously busy time for me. Hispanic Heritage Month, Native American Heritage Month. The fall brings, a change of seasons. And so I'm always busy, coaching football. I coach my son's football team. We have comedy shows going on. I host one of the largest Dia de los Muertos festivals down in downtown San Antonio every year. So I want to invite y'all to come out to that at Hemisphere Park on the weekend of October 28th. I believe it's the 26th, 28th. And so it's going to be busy. And so I recommend also another tidbit for people: get organized however you can, the best way that you can.
Oh, yeah.
And so check me out online. My name is Maximo. I like to tell people there's only one Maximo.
Yeah.
So Google me, try to find me, and then we'll connect somehow, some way.
All right.
Love
All
that.
right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
appreciate
sharing
you
with
having me.
us.
Thank
We
y'all.
love your energy. And we're excited to see, what's next for you. We're excited for
The
that.
pleasure was all mine. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you joining us, my brother, and thank you for reaching out because this has been an amazing show, and I'm sure that we'll have more connections and be seeing each other some more in the future.
Yes, I hope so.
All right, guys, thank you all for tuning in. If you like the show, please share it with anybody that you think could benefit from some of the lessons that we've shared in this show, and remember to subscribe. Catch you on the next one.